Here's a pair of WAI starters, one of which I recently wrecked, the other one which is brand new. This is the new one. This is the wrecked one, and I wrecked the original one because the gear wasn't set up properly. Where's the gear? Right. Inside the starter housing is this gear, which meshes with that, and it should mesh bang on like that. But because there was an extra washer, mine was like that, and it just stripped it, and it had been put together like that before I had it. So I found this out when I rebuilt it. I thought, oh, that's silly, and I bought another. No, that was it. I bought another starter. I thought the starter had failed, and it did exactly the same thing. Essentially, it did what's happened here. Because it was out of whack with it, it just chopped the top off. That's not what's happened to this, funnily enough, although the results do look similar. So then I've worked out what the problem was, fixed it, and I thought, I'm not buying another. I'd already bought one new starter. These are quite cheap. They're 85 quid, so probably $100, which is, you can buy like 3 of them for a Prestolite one. They're a direct fit replacement for the Prestolite. They slot straight in. However, the internal dimensions of everything is not the same. I didn't know this, and I thought, I'm going to be clever. For 20 quid I can get another armature, because these gears are part of the armature. You have to buy the complete armature. So for 20 quid I'll get an armature, quarter of the price of a new starter, slot it in there, stick it back in, it'll be fine. Unfortunately, the internal dimensions are not the same, and here's the one. This is a Y starter motor with a Prestolite armature, and I had a choice. I could either have a bearing that was too tight or a bearing that was too loose, and I went with the one that was too loose. Don't know if you can see, bloody thing's moving, right? Right, and that was about what it felt like when I put in. And I thought, well, it's only been used to start it. It'll probably last a few miles, and I was already mentally thinking, oh, I'll probably buy a new one, but this will be a stopgap, and I forgot about it. That was it. It was a stopgap, and I forgot about it. And a few hundred miles later, yeah, it's gone as well. It looks very similar to the one actually in a previous video where the gear slipped, but it's worse. Look down on it. Yeah, there you go. You can see there were a couple of teeth that are just missing completely. Absolutely missing completely. There's a cutaway on the engine of the Electric Star XLHs, where you can slide the cylinder in. And is that even on? Oh, it's on now. And hopefully, yes, there's the teeth of this gear here. There's the teeth of it in there. And those teeth engage with, say, that, and it does just slot in. You don't have to. At the moment I've got the primary side undone, but that's for another reason. You definitely don't need the primary side undone to take off the starter motor. When it arrives, when it's shipped to you, let's get the dead one out of the way for the moment. It will be done up with nuts and bolts at both ends of these long studs. Now you need to take these two off, the two near the gear, because these are the threads that slot into those holes, top and bottom there, top and bottom of the big hole where the gear goes through. Okay. Now the problem with this is these studs are also holding the whole thing together. It's quite heavy for what it is, and that bit comes off and that bit comes off, and it will just fall off unless you hold it together. So you've got to take the nuts off the studs. You've got to hold it together, offer it up to that bit, which by the way doesn't support it as such. I don't think it really is just making space for it. I think the only things that are holding it on are these long studs. So then you've got to get these quite weedy little studs. It's the same arrangement as on the. You can see the cylinder of the generator there, and that's a stud, and that's a stud. But these are quite heavier. So it's quite a thing. I made a video earlier about using cable ties to hold the brushes in place if it does all spring out, right? Because putting it back together is awful unless you do that. But let's give it a go. There's a gasket goes between that and the business end. Get that out of the way. That's misleading. The business end of that. I put grease all over it so it sticks to the end, because then it stays in place and it's one less thing to worry about. I also put grease all over the the gear. Just because. Yeah, and as so often happens, I cut to the part where I've done it, because honestly I need 3 hands to this, not one. It's fiddly, it's weird, and you just sort of jiggle it in and hope it doesn't fall apart. And then once it's lined up top and bottom, once the gears mesh with the other one, and in fact I'll show you that on the other side. There is no way on God's earth you can see that, not with this very old camera, and certainly not with the way YouTube compresses video. But it is meshed beautifully. I've satisfied myself that it is meshed beautifully, and it's done up nicely. So all that remains now, if you've taken out, aside from those bolts to remove it, first of all you disconnect your battery, as you do when doing anything electrical, but definitely anything electrical involving the starter. There's a cable here. Where's the end of it? Here it is. This is on a stock Sportster Ironhead. This will be black, but this is one I made myself. This is made it red because it's dangerous. And you reconnect that. That reconnects it to the solenoid, and that's the only thing you have to take apart. You have to disconnect the battery, then take off this lead from the solenoid, and then you can undo those 2 bolts, and it will just come out. There's a chromey cover that goes on it, which may be why this looks a bit odd. So if you imagine with a chromey cover, or maybe not. And yeah, that's about all I can tell you about that. Cheery bye.